Now, I checked the board behind me. We are actually, in fact, in week 8 of the high school football season. Spooky season, by the way, Friday the 13th. I'm dressed accordingly. But we have the regular season finale for classes 2A through 8-man. As for classes 5A through 3A, these games are just as important with teams jostling for a spot in the playoffs.
Curtis Fader and Owen Sebring still with a few weeks left of Eastern Iowa OT. We're taking you deep into the playoffs this month, but for week 8, the one we've all been waiting for, time is running out on teams' chances to solidify that spot in the postseason.
Owen, you said it, and Prairie's taking that message to heart, entering its biggest game of the season thus far. A win versus third-ranked Bettendorf would guarantee a spot in the last 16, but a loss would see Prairie sitting at 4-4, hoping the RPI will be in their favor to make the playoffs. Not a lot gets better than a top 10 matchup this late in the year. Pick it up near the end of the first quarter. Will Tripp goes deep and finds Apollo Payne. Reels in that wet ball. Prairie entering the red zone. This drive is going to stall as Bettendorf's defensive front. They're going to get home. Some Hawks points taken off the board. Prairie find themselves down 5 in the second quarter, going for it on 4th and 2 inside their own 20-yard line. And this risk is not going to pay off for them. Hawks turn it over on downs. The Bulldogs are ready to capitalize. Gavin Barta gets the carry, and he's not going down until he sees different colored turf beneath him. Touchdown, Bettendorf. Prairie now down 2 scores. But here come the Hawks again. Tripp rolling out of the pocket, finding his favorite target, Apollo Payne, in stride. Prairie flips the field and is knocking on the door once again. But a rainy night equals a few spills out there on the gridiron, and Hawks miscue the snap. The Bulldogs recover. Prairie, they're dropping this one to Bettendorf 35-8. Now, a lot of what we said about the stakes of that game, you can say about this one. Cedar Falls right now sitting 11th in RPI, loving the idea of beating Kennedy, who's ranked in the top 5 right now. But the danger of being a 500 team after 8 weeks is staring the Tigers in the face. Plenty of other 3-loss teams that would love to jump them in the rankings as well. We're going to pick things up in the second half. Tigers up 10-7 with Tate Hermanson lost one up to Logan Rowe at the back pylon. 12-yard TD puts Cedar Falls up 10, but Kennedy says don't celebrate too early. Cougars knocking on the door later in the third. Vinny Gianforte to Cyrus Courtney. SpongeBob and Patrick, Scooby and Shaggy. I'm going to list famous partnerships as long as I have to because this connection is lethal. 3-point ball game now. Hermanson gets picked off by Pierce McCrary. He's taking this ball deep inside Tiger territory, but the Cougars failed to convert on that drive. Kennedy gets one more shot at it in the fourth quarter. Gianforte rolls out looking for anyone open in the end zone, but it's Caleb Whelan of the Tigers who he finds instead. Cedar Falls still undefeated in the Unidome, holding on to upset Kennedy 17-14. Meanwhile, Dubuque seniors trying to avoid going winless this year with a great opportunity to finally get it against a 1-6 Wash squad. Pick it up first quarter. Grady McGuire's making the field look like a slip and slide. He's making all the big plays for Wash early, and I now have a shoulder contusion just like Deshaun Watson. Warriors come up empty on that drive, but Senior wasn't having much luck either. Wash's staff pretty much called every play the Rams were about to run correctly. The players were good listeners, but Dub Senior stayed resilient, and although the defense bent, it never broke. Rams get their first win of the season coming out of a deluge at Kingston on top, 10-0.
If any team in Iowa is going to break through the Des Moines area's stranglehold on Class 5A football, Pleasant Valley has as good a shot as anybody. Iowa City West has been that team before, trying to build their way back to statewide prominence. They're averaging 51 points over the last 2 games, but PV hasn't lost since their season opener against Bettendorf. Trojans down 3-0 in the second, giving the ball to Butali, gobbling, bruising all his way down inside the red zone. West taking the lead on the number 4 Spartans early in the second quarter. Ashton Honore with his 4th touchdown of the season. The 8-3 Trojans are marching. A medieval battle if there ever was one. Trojans and Spartans were tied at 25 late, but PV puts on the throttle in the 4th. 13-point loss for the Trojans, who will have a game with major playoff implications next Friday at Prairie. Hempstead started the season 3-0, really have been picking up steam this year, but they've lost 3 of their last 4 heading into the final home game against Davenport West. Not quite the home finale the Mustangs were planning on. The Falcons were picking up yards, wet ball situation all over Eastern Iowa. First points of the night come off a fumbled snap into the end zone for a West touchdown. Mustangs will have one last chance to close the season with a win next Friday at Davenport Central. Still to come, 2 of our best 4A teams in Eastern Iowa lock horns. Decorah and Western Dubuque deciding who's going to pick up a postseason home game.
And after the break, we have Linn-Mar and City High, both desperate to stay alive in the 5A playoff picture. Highlights from those games and so much more coming up next on Eastern Iowa OT.
Yeah, we can ask to have a dry ball. It's all right. It's all right. Hey, good job. Good job. Holy moly! Let's go, Rod!
Hey, the hammer to the middle. Let's go. Break us down.
Let's go. Get after it. Big on three. 1, 2, 3.
The make-or-break games continue over in Iowa City. Linn-Mar and City High ranked 12th and 13th respectively, both 3 losses, just separated by .0017 points in the RPI rankings. Something's got to give, and Mitch Fick has more on the all-too-important matchup from Bates Field.
Some very close races for playoff spots in Class 5A. Just means every game matters right now, and what other way would you want it? We have a lightning delay just before kickoff at Bates Field, so the start gets end up pushed back about 45 minutes or so. First quarter, Linn-Mar with a chunk play early. Stone Morgan to Landon Sorg. Nice little gainer down the sideline, but the drive is going to stall eventually for the Lions, thanks to plays from the City High defense like this one. Dax Judge overruled. Lots of great defense on both sides in this one early. Later in the first, Linn-Mar's Sam Watts, you move that second S from the last name, Sam Swat, South Dakota State commit, almost picked that one too. City High eventually settles in on third down this drive. Bobby Bacon in for Drew Larson after he broke his arm earlier this year, but looking crispy there, BB. Jeremiah Madlock. Jerry! 63 yards for 6-7-0 Little Hawks. Ensuing Lions possession. Jake Mitchell looking like wrestling season already. Double egg, 2. Linn-Mar punts. Next City High drive goes into the second quarter where the Little Hawks just parlay 9 straight runs from Miles Parlay into a 6-yard score. City High with a big step towards the postseason. 30-0 shutout over Linn-Mar. 5-3 now heading into week 9. Little Hawks go to third-ranked Bettendorf next Friday. You just saw the Bulldogs win at Prairie. Linn-Mar 4-4 now, back home hosting fourth-ranked Pleasant Valley to wrap up the regular season and make one last push for a possible playoff spot.
Thank you there, Mitch. Elsewhere in 5A, Cedar Rapids Jefferson so close yet so far from a winning record this year. Jayhawks fall to Davenport Central in a Ferentz Masterclass 6-3. And meanwhile, Liberty's starting to show its potential, shutting out Waterloo West at home 44-0.
Even after a 2-2 start to the season, Mitch Fick would not let us sleep on Xavier football. 2 regular season losses is not what the Saints have become accustomed to, but to their credit, they have bounced back magnificently, winning 3 in a row, including an upset of North Scott. Now tonight, taking on the Clippers of Clear Creek, Amana. We start with Xavier, already up 21-0. Noah Schimberg on the carry. Following blockers, dives towards the goal line, but he's just inches short. And when you're that close, hard not to give it to one of the best players in the state. Ronan Thomas seeing the hole in the Clipper D. Clean jersey into the end zone. Saints missing the PAT, so it's 27-0. Clippers trying to get points before half. Quentin Tran sacked by Jack Stevenson. Xavier held them to only 12 total yards in the first half. The Saints march on to a 35-7 win in Tiffin. We might be entering a new era of football at Marion High School. The Wolves have gotten something figured out under Michael Joyner, trying to secure a playoff spot tonight. Mason City driving in the first quarter. The Riverhawks looking to air it out, but Adam Rose reads it perfectly. Jumps in there for the interception, taking the ball down deep into Mason City territory. The matchup tonight of teams with recently converted mascots, the Wolves and Riverhawks. Trey Frank frankly doesn't give a darn. Early TD puts Marion ahead 7-0. Later in the first half, Mason City is pinned deep. I believe this is Logan Harris who's going to get credit for the safety. Now, how about this 6-2 Marion team with a 38-0 shutout going on the road to Waverly Shell Rock next week.
Yet another top 10 matchup to show you tonight between Decorah and Western Dubuque. Would have been a top 5 matchup had the Vikings not lost to those Marion Wolves last week. But lots to play for tonight still in Epworth between these two teams. Rain, that's been the ongoing vibe everywhere across Eastern Iowa tonight. These fans definitely have the right idea. We're picking this up in the fourth quarter. Bobcats trying to sustain its dominance in this game, but even down 28, the Vikings are going down swinging. Noah Milburn takes the fake punt all the way to midfield to get the first down. Ensuing drive, Louis Buxa going deep, finds Kelly Gates with the great hands for a bomb. A couple plays later, Buxa, he's going to be rolling out to his left, connecting with Caden Quandall at the pylon for the touchdown. Is there an epic comeback brewing in Western Dubuque territory? Probably not. Look at this one. Crunch! Western Dubuque taking care of business, winning 28-7. Meanwhile, Waverly Shell Rock had a bit of a rocky start to the year, but they pick up a win against Waterloo East 56-20. And keeping it here on Eastern Iowa OT because coming up, Williamsburg. They're set on revenge for their shocking loss to Solon last week. Find out if the Raiders can do so at home against Grinnell.
And we've been riding the Winfield-Mount Union train all season. They are the team to beat in 8-man football. See what kind of numbers a future Hawkeye can put up on HLV. That's after the break on Eastern Iowa OT. The State Association has the unenviable task of finding the right playoff spot for a trio of outstanding 3A teams in Eastern Iowa. Mount Vernon, Solon, and Williamsburg all will likely end the regular season at 8-1. All teams capable of winning a state title, all ranked in the top 7 of the RPI. You'd hate to see any one of these teams have to play each other before the semifinals. The Mustangs close out their home schedule with their second ever game at their brand new stadium. They've won 3 in a row since that lone loss to Solon. Mustangs scored 2 touchdowns in the first 60 seconds, and they just keep the downpour coming. Joey Romberg to Ethan Wood. Wood lighting a fire under the home squad. 21-0 midway through the first quarter. Punting was a significant headache for anybody playing out in the muck tonight. This one doesn't even find the foot of the Washington punter. Evan Brazzi falls on it to set the Mustangs up again with solid field position as the rain continues to fall. It's just torrential out there. Jonah Williams, a senior tailback, with his second touchdown run of the season. Now in the opening drive of the second quarter, Romberg connecting with sophomore Jace Jaspers. 2 Washington defenders run into each other like Curly and Larry. From there, it's a Jaspers scamper for 6. Romberg's 18th TD pass of the year. Mount Vernon now 2-0 on their new turf. Huge performance by the defense as the Mustangs finish out the regular season next week. Williamsburg, they're on the rebound after their first loss last week to Solon, and they are taking it out on assistant news director Mike Howell. Mike, watch out, they're coming right for you. First drive, Derek Weisskopf, fake handoff, QB keeper to the far side of the field. Stiff arms one on Tiger, hits the corner and dives towards the pylon. Raiders take a 7-0 lead. Grinnell just could not move the football tonight. Bad snap here. Williamsburg senior Simeon Armbrecht getting the sack, forces a Tiger punt. Next drive, Weisskopf getting it done through the air, hitting Clayton Steckley in that same corner of the end zone. Weisskopf, he's filling in nicely for an injured Kellen Cockrell. Did somebody order a 60 burger? This is a pretty good Grinnell team, but the Raiders with a 63-8 win tonight over the Tigers.
West Delaware is currently the first team out of the Class 3A playoff picture, trying to thrust themselves back in the mixture with a win over a top 10 opponent in Independence. West Delaware is up 15-7 to start the second half. Memphis Velker gets the carry up the gut, and he's going to do a lot more than that. Velker takes this one 40 yards of the house. Hawks pick up a 2-point conversion to take a 16-point lead. Next Hawks possession, they cough it up on their own 10. Indies recovering, and they're trying to pounce on it. Trayton Weber finds some grass and goes full extension into the end zone to cut the score to 23-15. Mustangs trying to ride the momentum, but Miller getting picked off for the 3rd time tonight. Ensuing West Del drive, the Hawks QB sneak it in, make it a 14-point game in the 4th quarter, but don't count Independence. Mustangs rolling out all the stops tonight, going flea flickers. Trayton Weber launches the ball downfield to find Bryce Christian with minutes left in this game. Same drive, Weber gets to tie a bow on a massive drive for the Mustangs. The score is now 29-21, and he's got to get this onside kick to stay alive, but Hawks recover. West Del hangs on to upset Independence 29-21. Got some more scores for you in Class 3A. Solon, as we mentioned, 8-1 coming in, looking dominant on the road, defeating Fairfield 42-6. Actually, they're 8-1 now. And Benton putting it on South Tama, blowing them out 74-0. And over in 2A, Vinton-Shellsburg still winless, losing to Jessup by 3 scores, and Monticello putting the beat down on Tipton, winning 57-6 on the road. Dike-New Hartford and Denver were both ranked multiple weeks in the top 10, but lost to a stiff 1A competition. We're scoreless in the second quarter. Noah Borchin gets the carry for the Wolverines, but that ball's getting popped down. The Cyclones fall on it. They're going to try to take advantage, and the Cyclones do just that. Jackson Sanderson drops back under center and finds Keaton Rothmeyer, who wins the 50-50 ball for the tutty. Denver up 8 with a 2-point conversion, but Dike-New Hartford's digging in deep in this battle. Noah Borchening avenging his prior fumble by taking it 20 yards downfield for the Wolverines, and Dike-New Hartford rewards him once more. Borchening gets into the end zone for the touchdown. Dike-New Hartford comes from behind to take down Denver on the road, 14-8. And we have some other great matchups to show scores of in 1A. Regina shutting out Wilton on the road, 35-0. And Sumner Fredericksburg taking this season by storm, beating Appleton Parkersburg 27-0.
In Dylan Hastings' first year as Lisbon's head coach, you couldn't have asked for much more out of the Lions. All they've done is win every game on their schedule. 5 games, their defense has allowed 7 points or less. Curiously, the Lions are still only ranked 5th in the state. They'll be 8-0 to start the playoffs next week. This one at a 7 o'clock start, and goodness, I am not sure I've ever seen such a soaking wet pair of football teams already at kickoff. Sometimes the lights make it look rainier than it really is. Not the case here. It was dumping in Lisbon. And I told the Lions to get me some quick touchdowns so I could get out of Dodge. And they oblige on the first play from scrimmage. Junior QB Dakota Clark slipping right through the Van Buren boys. Off to the races. Breaks the tape for his 12th rushing touchdown of the season. Then midway through the first quarter, Clark going ahead with his 2nd rushing touchdown of the night. Cannot wait to see what this kid turns into next year. The crowd would be going wild if they weren't clutching their umbrellas like grim death. Final minute of the first quarter, just look at that rainfall. I have never seen a night quite like this one on a Friday. Look at Clark down the sideline, pushed out of bounds, and he goes sliding for about an extra 10 yards. Clark would finish that drive with his 3rd rushing score of the first half. Lisbon, they're going to go on to the playoffs with a perfect 8-0 record and at least a couple of home games coming up on their schedule. Elsewhere in Class A, Starmont's incredible turnaround season continues. District champs with a 21-point win over a really good Maquoketa Valley team. Can't say enough good things about that Starmont team as they head to the playoffs. And North Linn wins by 50 to finish the regular season. That's a team that nobody should want to see come the playoffs. And what better way to end the show than with maybe the most unbeatable team in Iowa, Winfield-Mount Union, #1 in 8-player ball, coming off a 1-0 win by forfeit last week. That broke up a streak of 3 straight games, scoring 70 or more points. They're well on their way again, scoring 36 in the first quarter, and Jake Edwards, still hungry for more, down the sideline, sets up 1st and goal. Next play, taking their cues from Philly with a little brotherly shove to get Edwards into the end zone to make it 48-0. HLV with the ball late in the first half. Max Henstorf spinning out of the sack, but future Hawkeye linebacker Cam Buffington with ill intent on the tackle. Then on the ensuing drive for the Wolves, Edwards flying the friendly skies to Carter Lloyd. Edwards a perfect 4 for 4 on passes tonight, and the top-ranked Wolves will go into the playoffs with an unblemished 8-0 record. Central City's only loss was to Winfield in the season opener, won 6 straight since then. Closing out the regular season against Midland, opening drive, Central City on the goal line. Jaden Hansen doing his best impression of Jalen Hulu Has Live Sports with a push across the goal line. Hansen had a brace of rushing scores tonight, a couple of passing touchdowns tacked on as well. Both of those went to Mekhi Benton. Hansen's thrown 11 touchdowns this year and not a single interception. That is one efficient regular season for the Wildcat senior. 28-6 lead after 1 quarter. Matthew Klosterman runs it up even further in the first play of the second. Statement win to end the regular season. 7-1 going into the playoffs for a 2nd year in a row. Watch out for Central City.
Whew, packed show, scores and highlights from top to bottom. And when we come back, we review our latest play of the week and break down the best what we saw tonight. So stay tuned with us on Eastern Iowa OT. In a day where sheets of rain are falling, it's a measure of toughness and endurance that declares victors, and those traits were exactly what contributed to our play of the week over in Mount Vernon. In the midst of a rainstorm, Joey Romberg floats one over the middle, normally a trip to the hospital for a receiver, but Jace Jasper says, nah, I hit the weight room. Nothing stopping him from reaching the end zone. Mount Vernon gets the blowout victory tonight, and Jaspers gets our Week 8 play of the week. Another week of football down, but there's a lot of big matchups going down tonight, setting up some more precursors for next week. But man, that Cedar Falls-Kennedy game, that was huge.
That is one of the biggest, maybe even most surprising games of the night. I mean, Cedar Falls has been great all year, but I have to be impressed with the way they played against a Kennedy team that went 0-2 to start the season. Cedar Falls, gosh, those guys just do not lose on their home turf.
Yeah, I mean, being in a dome on a night like this is a really good home field advantage, but 3A is really packed right now. Williamsburg is looking as good as ever. We were all kind of shocked last week when Solon beat them, but man, they are bouncing back, and I wouldn't want to face them in the playoffs.
Williamsburg is a team that had to make some adjustments. Kellen Cockrell has been plagued by injuries late in the year. He's maybe one of the best players in Iowa when he's healthy, but Derek Weiskopf tonight steps in at quarterback, and that kid looked outstanding against a Grinnell team that was pretty good. I mean, they were, 5-2, I think, coming into this game. So Grinnell's not just a pushover like Williamsburg has had against some teams out there, but those guys looked great against a Grinnell team that's pretty solid. And these guys are going to carry a lot of momentum in the postseason. Don't know if we're going to see Kellen Cockrell back or not. I'm not sure what kind of injury he suffered last week against Solon, but they could be a great team to possibly make a run in Class 3A. We've already seen the teams that are going to be making the postseason from Class 8-man all the way up to Class 2A. A full 16 teams from Eastern Iowa from our coverage area are going to be making the 8-player playoffs, highlighted by, kind of the usual suspects. Central City, Glopper, Rhinebeck, Winfield-Mount Union, Waco to be expected. Class 2A, you got Monticello in there, Walk-On, Mid-Prairie, Jessup's going to be in there. The full playoff matchups are going to be released tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., and then we'll have the last week of the bigger schools' regular season next week with the playoff matchups coming on the next day once